Greetings. I am back. Like MacArthur.
The Lazarus Man.
I shall return, indeed. Nice t-shirt, by the way.
Nice tie.
Thank you. I'm wearing this because we have our Des Moines red carpet premiere tonight. And frankly, it just hurts too much to get dressed again. So I'm wearing what I'm wearing to the red carpet premiere tonight. And so Amy had this custom Nefarious tie made for me. So
that's solid.
This is what I'm wearing tonight to the premiere, and I don't have the energy level to get dressed again later today. So you guys are just going to get a preview of it here this afternoon. Thank you guys for filling in, carrying my dead weight the last 24 plus hours or so. Really appreciate it. If in case you forgot, I'm Steve Deace. You remember these guys, all right? They were hosting the show yesterday, Todd Erzen and Aaron McIntyre. In case you guys are not on social media, I know you guys kind of shared, I think, on the show yesterday. I think I heard what I put on
we did
on social media about what happened. So I don't want to rehash all of that. But in essence, I just tried to fake macho it. And if I had waited another 12 hours, we would be having a much different conversation right now. All right, because all that bacteria was already headed to the bloodstream, and that's why my whole body was shutting down. And I mean, I was in and out of consciousness for a good 4 hours in the ER on Monday night. So, glad my wife. This last week leading up to release, guys. Here's what's happened in our family. Okay, Amy tore her meniscus at Pilates. Then, so she had to go to the ER for that. Then, she had an allergic reaction to the morphine they put her on. Never had in her life. So she had to go back to the ER for that. Then, I get a golf ball sized mass of bacteria that appears in my left upper torso. So we had to go to the ER for that. Woke up this morning and Zoe, our youngest daughter, has food poisoning. Anything going on this week? Anything? I mean, it has been quite a week at the Deace homestead, and I'll tell you why. It's because a month ago, it looked like the enemy was going to successfully box us out from a lot of theaters around the country that we thought we were going to get into with Nefarious this weekend. And Monday morning, we got the final theater count. It's nearly 1,000. We were barely looking at 500 2-3 weeks ago. And we're going to be in nearly 1,000 theaters nationwide. That's why so many of you have been emailing me, hey, my local theater wasn't picking up the movie. Now it is, and so I can go. I mean, I've gotten so many good notes, people with prayers and support for our family. Thank you so much for every single one of those. I've gotten so many I couldn't possibly respond to them individually. I've tried to respond to as many as I can. So thank all of you in total. Notes from people who are like, I live out of the country. I'm buying movie tickets anyway just so that seat will be occupied. I get notes from people, I mean, there's not a theater within 50 miles. I'm not driving that far, but I bought a couple tickets anyway. I am going to drive that far. I mean, it's just been crazy. You guys are absolutely incredible. I am deeply humbled. There is a rumor going around that even reading some of this last night, I was emotionally moved. I want you to know with certainty that is not true. That's just what a day and a half of hydrocodone will do to you. All right, it makes you a little bit loopy, and you've kind of lost a little control of your masculine sensibilities. All right, nevertheless, even though that is not the source of any of my choking up whatsoever, I am still humbled and honored by that emotion and support nevertheless. So thank all of you so much. I mean, I can't thank you enough. You guys have been absolutely incredible. And the enemy's pissed. I don't know what to tell you. He's pissed. And so, he's taking it out on our home right now. And at this point, it's just there's the point where you're like, oh man, and then another one hits and you're like, oh, I can't do this again. Then another one hits like, oh man, woe is us. Then you get another one hits and you're like, throw another shrimp on the barbie. You know what I'm saying? We're kind of at that point now where it's almost overkill now. Like we were kind of demoralized Monday. But then when you just kept hammering us at that point, you almost build your resolve. You'd have been better off just letting you simmer in that demoralization rather than punitively piling on, because then you're like, all right, now I know what this is about. And that kind of strengthens your resolve a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so as a family, we're kind of at that stage now, So I think, Amy, I can't use the left side of my body. Amy's going in a wheelchair. All right. But we're having that Des Moines red carpet premiere tonight. one way or another, we're showing up for that sucker tonight. So thank you guys, all of you, for all the prayers and support. It's been incredibly powerful. And I can't thank you all enough. We will do our best to repay you with the standard of mediocrity that we have long ago set. Daniel Horowitz will be joining us later on in the show, the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation. We will play Buy, Sell, or Hold with you coming up at the bottom of this hour. But before we get to all of that, let us begin, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Tucker Goes to Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump granted his first interview since his arraignment to Fox News' Tucker Carlson. Was fairly foreign policy heavy, but Trump also gave his thoughts on whether he thinks Joe Biden will run in 2024.
Look, I watch him just like you do. And I think it's almost inappropriate for me to say it. I don't see how it's possible. But there's something wrong. I saw his answer today on television about whether or not he was going to run, to a very nice guy named Al Roker. I mean, you can't get a softer question than that. That was a long answer, talking about the eggs and the this and that. Look, I don't think he can.
This interview comes as Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg filed a lawsuit yesterday against Republican House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, asking a court to block elements of the congressional inquiry into his case against former President Donald Trump. Bragg calls Jim Jordan's actions an unprecedentedly brazen and unconstitutional attack. Add this to the growing list of exploded suddenly. A massive fire broke out in an industrial plant in Richmond, Indiana yesterday. Those within a 5-mile radius were told to evacuate. No injuries have been reported. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee is somewhere in the space of virtue signaling or capitulating to the anti-gun mob. He signed an executive order yesterday aimed at strengthening background checks for firearm purchases and called on Tennessee lawmakers to pass a law to keep guns away from people who present a danger to themselves and others. A reporter for the British Broadcasting Company asked Twitter CEO Elon Musk for an interview, and Musk obliged. I don't think it went the way the BBC numbskull thought it would go.
Content you don't like or hateful? What do you mean to describe a hateful thing?
Yeah, I mean, just content that will solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
So you think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
No,
is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm saying.
Well, I'm just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content, and I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, you've asked me whether my feed, whether it's got less or more. I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for examples. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I
you
don't.
can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore. Because I just don't particularly like it.
But you said
actually, a lot of people are quite similar. I only look at
hang on a second. You said you've seen more
feed.
hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And
then how did you see the hateful content?
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen you hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet, and yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's a false.
No, what I claimed,
you just lied.
What I claimed was. There are many organizations that say that kind of information is on the rise. Now, whether it has on my feed or not, I mean, right, and
literally
you can look at something
one.
Like the Strategic Dialogue Institute in the UK. They will say that. So
look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a single example, and you can't name one.
Right, and as I've already said, I don't use that feed. But
then how would you know that?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content. and then couldn't name a single example.
Right, and as I said,
that's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how would you know there's hateful content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks ago. I can't give you an exact example. Let's move on.
CNN panelist and Rolling Stone columnist Jay Michelson says it's no big deal the Dalai Lama asked a young boy to suck on his tongue.
The Dalai Lama is a very playful human being, and we may see this in a weird, kind of gross, sexualized way, but this is about as sexual as a bowl of plain rice. There is nothing sexual or erotic happening in this encounter, as you can see by the reaction of the people who were there.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was at Hillsdale College recently. The whole speech he gave is well worth listening to, especially his conclusion.
And I'll leave you with 3 thoughts. One is that any power that government takes from the people, it will never return voluntarily. Number 2 rule, every power that government takes, it will ultimately abuse to the maximum extent possible. And number 3, nobody ever complied their way out of totalitarianism. The only thing we can do is resist. Thank you all very much.
And finally, this from the Media Research Center.
Bud Light presents a real man hiding his penis.
Real man hiding his penis.
Today we recognize you, Mr. Man who thinks he's a woman.
Man who thinks he's a woman.
When conventional wisdom said no one could actually change their gender, you said, hold my beer.
You gotta hold it, yeah, you gotta hold it.
You knew the limitations of actual biology, and you still failed to beat them.
I really hope he knows he can't get pregnant.
You can watch that entire hilarious video on all of MRC's social media channels, and that's what happened while we were away.
Welcome back, Steve.
That is tremendousness. Okay. I mean, I'm a big fan of mocking and scorning demonic trolling and silliness, laughing at it. And that's Babylon B level right there. I mean, that is very, very well done. Aaron's Montage, brought to you by our friends over at Eden Pure. Purify the air in your home. Get clean, healthy, fresh smelling air with the Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifier that eliminates odors. Doesn't just make a room smell good. It smells fresh. It eliminates that mold, mildew, the bacteria, maybe even some viruses that are causing some of the odor in that air. I've gotten so much good response from people in the audience that have been trying this since they came on board the show last year. Get the 3-pack of their Thunderstorm Eden Pure Air Purifier for whole home protection. 3 units, all 3 units for under $200 and free shipping as well. Shipping is free. All 3 units for under $200 when you go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code Steve. EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code Steve. I think that the inclusion of these 3 figures in this montage today of Trump, Musk, and RFK Jr. I actually think you see all 3 of them in many respects, given their current ages and stations, at their best. I know I've not done much, frankly, on this show to defend Trump since March 16th of 2020, because frankly, there hasn't been much, from my point of view, much worthy of defending Trump on since March 16th of 2020. And frankly, I had to defend my audience from the Trump administration often, starting on March 16th, 2020. That all being said, I don't agree with, I see him getting hit by even some of the DeSantis people I like, talking about Gavin Newsom. He used to get along with him, things of that nature. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, actually, I'd be advising Trump to say stuff like that. Say, hey, Al Roker's a nice guy. I think everybody who loves the irascible Trump, he already has all those votes, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you love when he goes full DB, full canoe, then you've got he's cornered the market on I just want someone to rail against these people because I've given up all other hope vote. He has all of that, right? Mm-hmm. And we've learned the last few cycles with him being really either on the ballot or the face of the Republican Party, we have learned what the portion of that electorate that either loves it or is willing to tolerate it is. We all know the answer to that. Fair? Mm-hmm. We know the answer to that. What we don't know, really, is if he presented more. See, the guy you see in that Tucker interview is more the guy that I spoke to a lot leading up to his first presidential race. Let me just sit here and riff and dunk on people, at rallies for an hour. I just never knew that guy. By the time that figure emerged, I was already on the Cruz campaign. I never met that person, didn't know that person even existed. I saw more of a charming narcissist, like frankly what you see in the Tucker interview from last night. I don't think it hurts Trump at all. I think it's the exact opposite, to point out that he used to be friends with people who disagree with him now, used to get along well with people who disagreed with him now. And because that makes that's a far better tactic than let me latch on to every petty grievance and exhaust people with exercising them. I think if you like that aspect of Trump, then he couldn't lose your vote no matter what. You're in, okay? You're in on him as a brand. So if you're Trump, you don't need to worry about alienating those people. Now it's one. You don't want Trump to say, and I agree. I used to agree with Gavin Newsom on carbon emissions. Like, you don't want to hear that, right? That we're not talking about issues, right? We're just talking about relationships. As long as it's not like, Gavin Newsom and I used to think he had some pretty good points on the environment and stuff. If that starts happening, then then I'll have a different take on this. Okay. But if we're just talking about he's reminding you, hey, I used to be a popular celebrity, and I maybe even had many of these same views, and everybody was fine with it until I became the face of the opposition party, and now they suddenly want to act like I'm persona non grata. I don't think it hurts him to remind people of that at all. In fact, I think that is a good tactic for him. Because the reality is the number one thing separating him from the presidency is, and this even includes COVID. I mean, the reason the administration felt that they had a deep-needed or seated desire to come up with a complementary ancillary figure like an Anthony Fauci to basically speak to the rest of America because they wouldn't listen to Trump, is that ties into what I'm about to say too. The number one reason he's not president right now, and the number one reason why I think the odds are low he'll be president again in its current iteration, is too many people just don't like him as a human being. Period. That's it. Now, you can change that. The thing is, it's just hard to be willing to. And then if you're willing to, can you do it sincerely so it doesn't make it look like this is just another contrivance, right? It's not a contrivance at all for Donald Trump to say, these guys all loved coming to my casinos. They all loved coming to my hotels. They all loved staying at the Mar-a-Lago. They loved coming to my resorts. I sponsored golf events on ESPN. All the major boxing fights were in Atlantic City and we're at the Trump casino. Those things are all true. And I think if he can maintain that, because one of the things that they successfully did with him is, yes, we think Jim Acosta looked like a clown, a hacktastic clown for 4 years of the Trump presidency, right? That's what we think, right? Mm-hmm. But the average person that's not in our subculture grew very leery and tired of seeing that on their TV every night, on their phone every day. And so when it came time to remove the distraction, you can't vote Jim Acosta out, right? Is Jim Acosta on the ballot? No. Who's on the ballot?
Donald Trump.
It's a little bit like in sports. In the middle of a season, we can't go get a brand new quarterback if our team sucks, right? I can't go get a brand new starting pitcher if the pitching staff sucks, right? Mm-hmm. And so in the middle of the season, when the team is struggling, everybody calls the sports talk radio show and says, do what? Fire the coach? Fire the coach. Because I can't get rid of him. I can't get a whole new team. I can't turn my roster over in the middle of the year. but I can hold him accountable, so fire the coach. Similarly, if you're exhausted by the Trump media urination contest, which is probably very few people in this audience, but almost everyone in this audience probably knows someone that is in this group at the same time, right? Like, you probably don't care. You probably can't get enough of him nuking these people. But you probably know people in your family or peer group who were offended by it, exhausted by it, tired of hearing it, etc., because they're more soft-headed than you are. And so that group just doesn't like him as a human being. And I don't think it hurts him at all. I don't know if it'll help him or not. I don't know. But I don't think it hurts him at all to remind these people, hey, Al Roker used to call me by my first name. We used to be buddies. I don't think it hurts him at all. I think that's smart. And maybe shows some level of self-awareness of how he understands he needs to, I don't think he needs to reinvent himself. I wouldn't do that because, again, you don't want to seem like it's a contrived and it's insincere. But I think that he needs to, maybe a refashioning, maybe is the way I would put it. You know, like every now and then your software system needs updated, right? You know, you wake up, you turn your laptop on, and overnight, you know, your software updated itself. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's the same laptop, right? Same, it just, you know, was updated a little bit. Maybe it shows he needs that. Then you see Elon Musk, and I think the role of non-ideological BS caller. Now, I think that's BS because I don't think anybody's non-ideological. We're human beings, okay? There's only been one objective human being in all of human history. We just commemorated the hanging of him on a cross. The rest of us are all very subjective. So there is no such thing as a non-ideological BS caller. I'm just here to play referee. Well, no. I'll take things the Antichrist will say one day for $1,000, Alex. Okay? No, I don't believe in that. Okay? And I hope he doesn't either, because then I might start to think if he does that maybe he's the Antichrist after all. Okay? No. There is no such thing as somebody who just objectively is above it all. Okay? But I think Musk is comfortable being presented and considered as he's wearing a t-shirt for a television interview. This is the richest guy in the world, man. All right. Wearing t-shirt and jeans for an interview on the BBC. He's clearly, he can afford any wardrobe on the planet. He is sending a message right away. He's assuming a role here. And it's clear the role that he wants you to see him as, despite his cosmic wealth, unprecedented in our species history wealth. He wants you to see him as he's annoyed by the same things you are. He's ticked off by the same things you are. And really the only difference between you and him are all the zeros on the front of his check compared to yours. Fair? Mm-hmm. I think he's clearly sending that message. Okay? And watching him undo that BBC reporter by simply just repeatedly asking him for an example of what he's claiming reminds me of the climactic scene in Expelled where Ben Stein just completely unravels. Is it Richard Dawkins, right?
Yeah.
Just completely unravels Richard Dawkins by repeatedly asking him why. Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Why? And I mean, and Dawkins eventually has to admit he can't. He has no real answer, and I think
aliens
revert back to aliens and crystal shavings or some ridiculousness. I think it was is the origin of species, correct? And then you get to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I want to read this from Aaron's montage because it's so powerful. I want to reset these words. Any power that government takes from the people, it will never return voluntarily. Every power that government takes, it will ultimately be abused to the maximum extent possible. Nobody ever complied their way out of totalitarianism. The only thing we can do is resist. That's like every Thomas Jefferson essay ever written. That's like every John Locke treatise ever written.
That's hot.
Okay? Todd's like, that's hot. That is transcendent. And that gets to the very core of the foundational worldview that established this country. In fact, that might be the best quantification, itemization of that worldview by a contemporary politician that I have seen in many, many years. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of something that would come to me immediately that I think better sums up America as a country and what led to its founding and led to its exceptionalism. Well, Steve, you left God out of it. Well, invariably, it is this understanding of human nature that led to the founders creating a republic based on God-given rights rather than government-established rights. It's this understanding. It's this understanding of human nature and governments that led to the founding fathers not just doing a Magna Carta redux, but learning that that had limits, because now we have liberty by law. Well, whose law? The king's law. Well, what happens when there's a king that knows not Joseph, right? Mm-hmm. They might have a new law. So hopefully there's a more transcendent standard than our liberty is determined by who is king at any particular moment. And so they came up with a transcendent standard, the laws of nature and nature's God, a pre-existent standard that transcends the human condition or the human preference of governance or power at that particular time. And that is what RFK Jr. is tapping into there. And to articulate it this way, this plainly in this way, this is not, hey, I'm at Hillsdale College. That's where he said this at. I'm at Hillsdale College and I just read up on, what the one respected right-wing university in America who's not explicitly religious, what they're teaching their kids. And so let me just come up with this as a tagline. If that's what it was, he would have quoted some like founding father. No, I mean, you say it this way because it's endemic in you. Like you understand it. You've personalized this in your expression of this. And I'm going to tell you right now, if that's the worldview he's running on, and now the challenge for him will be, are you truly willing to apply that? It was a challenge for some of our founding fathers too. Even the guy that wrote "All men are created equal" went home to his slaves. So it's not unique for human beings to have blind spots to their own prophetic utterings and pronouncements. Okay, but if that is going to be the theme of his campaign, and he is able to maintain that, that is going to be a very attractive campaign. So, gentlemen, your thoughts on kind of comparing those three titanic figures right now, all in the same montage?
I think on the topic of RFK Jr., I think any left-winger could have said and maybe quoted verbatim that last point. All we have to do is resist. I mean, what was it after Donald Trump was elected? It was this faux, we must resist.
Hashtag resist.
Hashtag resist. We got the pink hats, all of that. The reason he truly means it, in that same speech, he talks about the origins of the U.S. bioweapons program. He also, I don't remember this. Also, I was 8 years old when this went down. He also talks about the passage of the Patriot Act and how the very same year before 9/11 even happened, there was some sort of Event 201 type event talking about anthrax attack on behalf of or perpetrated by like Saddam Hussein or something like that. They were the Congress was deliberating over the Patriot Act. The only 2 or 3 congressmen, senators, who got anthrax sent to them were the ones who were blocking that. You pair that together with his anti-vax and things like that, talking about the CIA and his uncle's assassination. This guy truly is anti-establishment, I think, anyway.
I want to get your take on this when we come back. All right, and then we'll get to buy, sell, or hold. Stay tuned. Only fitting, before we hear from Todd, that we hear about one of Todd's favorite partners here on the show. Bonner Private Wines, these extreme altitude wines grown at about 9,000 feet of altitude. Malbec grapes with families that have been doing wine the old-fashioned way, not the factory way, for going on a second century now. These are really good, correct?
Mm-hmm. Very.
I mean, I only ask because I've liked them, but I mean, you really like these wines. And you've liked them many times, correct?
We're friends.
Yes, you guys are well acquainted. And now they throw in a bonus bottle of their small batch limited production wine from their exclusive wine cellar as well. So now you get 4 bottles for the price of 3, 4 bottles for the price of 3, and half off that price at the same time with free shipping. I mean, there's not much more they can do to make you more like Todd. They can't make it any easier for you. I mean, they still have to have a profit of some magnitude to stay in business here, guys. Okay, so they are making these things as accessible to you and Todd friendly to you as they possibly can. When you go to BonnerPrivateWines.com/Steve, BONNER, BonnerPrivateWines.com/Steve. All right, so Todd, your thoughts on what we were discussing before the last segment, looking at these 3 kind of titanic figures right now. And you have Trump and the way he is basically trying to refashion himself as, I used to be popular once by all the same people who made me unpopular now. What gives? Which I think is an effective tactic, actually. If he can stay with it and pull it off, I think it has the chance to be effective. Then you have Elon Musk fashioning himself as the non-ideological BS caller, showing up world's richest man to an interview on one of the more austere platforms in the West, the BBC, wearing t-shirt and jeans. Just during the break I saw, he is memeing and tweeting out this moment. He is milking this thing for all it can. It's very Trumpian how he is trying to milk this moment right now of him calling BS on the BBC and making them pulling their pants down in that interview. And then you have RFK Jr., who is articulating, really, in my view, from the heart, what it takes, what we're up against, how the spirit of the age has manifested itself politically, and then what it takes to defeat something like this. Your thoughts on that triumvirate?
Well, because of the connective tissue between all 3, the only thing I'm surprised about by anything you said is your analysis of Trump. Only in the purest theoretical sense, I get it. But again, all these 3 have become such a threat to the system, a system that RFK rightly points out killed, my father and my uncle. There's no amount of saying, hey, look at the good times we used to have. I mean, COVID came along and election was overturned because of the threat Donald Trump, because he decided to go off script. Basically, Elon Musk is Tony Stark in that first movie, and then he's reformed and he does this, and now Obadiah Stane is like, you need to die. And RFK Jr., you're Kennedy, for God's sake.
By the way, Elon Musk makes a cameo in Iron Man 2.
Oh, I know.
So, yeah, fitting.
I know.
But yeah, okay.
And RFK Jr., you're family. Didn't you learn any lessons from stay in line? And he won't. We talked about yesterday about if you're over the target, there's no way the system isn't going to make you suffer. That's how much is at stake. And again, it's not about, yes, we know RFK is probably going to be pro-abortion. We know God knows we know everything about Donald Trump. These men that makes our point even more. They're not saints. They're not even close to it. They have gigantic feet of clay. They've believed progressive lies their entire lives. Yet, they somehow know, whether they knew it before or not, they went off script enough that their actions threatened locating the Death Star via the thermal exhaust ports. Mm-hmm. So no, that's so going. Donald Trump saying, Al Roker was a nice guy. That Is that going to save the next election from being stolen? Is that going to save another COVID being lost? I mean, those three are, you're bringing them up in tandem. It's perfect. There's so much connective tissue there. They are utterly a threat because they've somehow said in their own way, we don't want to play this game anymore. Here's what America was. And if that's contagious, the system knows it's all over. It's going to take way more than Donald Trump saying, I used to be friends with Al Roker to change anything. It's just not, it's not just to do it. We're at war.
You can see, though, there is more people that want in on the disruptor space. And that was kind of Trump's space all to himself. I mean, on the Cruz campaign, we wanted it on that space. He beat us out. And so that was his space in and of himself. Mm-hmm. Now you can see there are more people that want in on that space. And in some respects, what you see from RFK Jr. and Musk are the two sides of Trump as a disruptor. You see Musk is doing the media side of Trump as a disruptor, going right at them, calling BS right to their face, challenging them right to their face on their own platform, and in his own way and in his own personality. And then RFK represents the RFK is actually, I think, better quantifying the heart and soul of what drives Trump's base than maybe I've ever heard Trump articulate. And so I think the ideological argument here of the philosophical settings, what time it is, truly. All right. When we get beyond the egos of these billionaires named Elon Musk and Donald Trump, when we remove their names, because even if they weren't here, this conflict would still be raging, right? And so what is the DNA, the essence of this conflict, which right now, when it gets wrapped up in the names of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and they're such huge figures and huge names and big brands and hugely wealthy, and so they're going to generate very strong opinions about themselves before you even consider what they believe or are advocating, right?
Yes.
RFK Jr. with half a voice, excommunicated from his family, literally just stripped to the nines as a human being. All right. I would just remember when I told him in January in Nashville, I got into this business to defeat people like you. Now I want a picture. You think 15 years ago, RFK Jr. thought, I can't wait to do a speech at Hillsdale College? I'm guessing the answer is no. Okay. But he has been laid and stripped bare by a willingness to challenge this system. And so you hear him through that challenged and stricken voice, you hear him though articulate the DNA of this conflict, even if men like Donald Trump and Elon Musk never existed.
Here's the frustration. RFK and Elon Musk, they've come to understand why they are a threat to the system. Donald Trump is a threat to the system, but he still doesn't understand why. If he did, he'd be doing the opposite of talking about Al Roker. He'd be blowing this thing up. He'd be like Epstein Island. Oh, here's all the names. I'm showing you everything. I still might not win. But that's really his only path. Pulling the curtain all the way back. If you want people to respect Donald Trump, show us all the lies. I don't give a damn if you like Al Roker. We are way past that.
See, I think we're way past this. I think all three of us live in neighborhoods where a lot of our neighbors aren't. That's what I'm addressing. I think, yes, we're past this.
I know, but
I think if I'm running a political campaign and I'm trying to win voters that have tuned me out, I'm not sure that a lot of our suburban neighbors who have traditionally voted Republican, that they're past this.
They all saw him for like 16 seasons of The Apprentice. They saw it with their own eyes. They know he's not Hitler, but they still need to believe that's not. It doesn't matter. He's never going to be nice guy Trump again.
So your argument is that's an unwinnable debate for Trump.
Yes.
And so instead, actually be the best version of what they already think you are. Is that your argument?
You were begging him to be early on, even when he was good Trump. I'd like a little bit more of the
that's good advice
the
too.
Tyrant.
Yeah. All right. So if your argument is you can't probably win over those soft-headed people, so don't try.
Yeah.
Instead, be the fulfillment of what they fear, and then when people benefit from that, they'll vote for you anyway.
And show us all the skeletons everywhere. Do you really know him or not? He says he does.
Okay. That's good advice too, I think.
Most of that interview last night was foreign policy centric, and he pivoted to foreign policy multiple times, at least.
As he should. It was the best part of his presidency.
And I thought that was pretty disciplined and smart of him. Do I have any aspirations that he will remain disciplined and smart in that messaging? No, I do not. But I think that's the road that he needs to go on. The talk about Al Roker and Gavin Newsom, pretty small portions of that interview. And yes, it's annoying and kind of mind-numbing from my vantage point, but the vast majority of his appearance on Tucker Carlson was foreign policy.
Be sure to check out our friends over at Constitution Wealth. Together, they will work with you to create a financial plan that is based on your values. They will align your portfolio with your principles. All right. And you'll find that your principles don't have to get in the way of profits any longer. Align your money with your values. Go to Invest with CW for Constitution Wealth. Investwithcw.com/Steve. That's investwithcw.com/Steve. Pardon me. All right, let's get to buy, sell, or hold. Good conversation. One that I think we will have in the future.
Yeah.
And I think a conversation we need to have in the future as well. Could an argument be made that if this is who RFK Jr. is really going to run as, the most good that could be done for this country is somebody like him actually being the Democratic nominee for president?
Absolutely.
Because if you're thinking that you just can't, it's almost impossible after 30 years of trying to move the Republican Party manifestly to the right.
Yeah.
Then if at least could we take the Democratic Party from the demonic land of insanity in which it currently resides and at least move it to 1993 or something, okay? 1998, okay? The Bill Clinton who was the last one to sign balanced budget amendments that we all thought was the end of America at the time, and now we're thinking, well, it was probably almost closer to Reagan than George W. Bush was in terms of actual policies when you remove the rhetoric. Would that wind the clock back of our devolution far more than even if you put a DeSantis in office? I don't know. I think that's a question worthy of debating.
But if the ghost of the Clintons is too much and you're just like ick factor, think Harry Truman. Think JFK. There's, Bay of Pigs, there's problems too, but are you telling me in this day and age you wouldn't vote for Harry Truman? Man, I'd take 10 Harry Trumans.
There you go. All right. Buy, sell, or hold. You guys know how it works. You have the propositions, the suggestions. You have given them to Aaron. He relays them to Todd and I, and then we will buy or sell. If at any point in time you decide, one of us decides, I should say, to use the hold, then we have punked out. We have violated the dude code by not taking a position. And as a result, right now I am doing this show with a hole in my upper body. I have a literal hole in my upper body right now. I'm doing this show with a hole in my upper body. Right now, there's a lot of men who think that they can have a hole in their lower bodies. If you place a hold, you will have to join Lindsey Graham in inspecting those lower body holes.
Leave now. Go back to wherever you were yesterday. Disgusting.
Go back to the shadows.
Yes. What's next? Garlic, sign of the cross? I expel you. The power of Christ compels you.
Maybe.
Yeah, I've been hanging with demons too much. All right, Aaron, go ahead.
Did not plan it this way, but we will begin with a reformed layman who says RFK Jr. as DeSantis' VP.
If you told me you could have that right now, I might have a hole in my chest for another reason. Goodbye, cruel world. We're good here. I'm good with that. What that national ticket for, or even Trump and RFK Jr. What either one of those national tickets would do for a 120 day general election campaign after the conventions? Could you guys even imagine that? What that would be like?
No.
I don't think we deserve it. No. Yeah, we don't deserve it. So
I'm selling also because I want to be able to respect whatever the other side is. I just want a real debate amongst two men who I don't hate. That would be pretty awesome.
See, I think that gets to the point I was just making a minute ago. If we had a real opposition party, like if we really had agency and they really cared about us. I was reading Charlie Kirk on Twitter today. He would know. As close as he is to the Trump operation, he would have an idea. They're planning on giving mainstream media, corporate media who hates us a lot more of the debates again in this primary later this year. If we had a real opposition party who knew what time it was, I'd have no interest in trying to bring the other party back to the mainstream. My only goal at that point would be to defeat them, to rout them. You know what I'm saying? But we don't have that. We don't have. Hey, where's the rest of the January 6th footage we were promised? It's been 2 months since they gave it to Tucker. Where's the rest of it at? We don't have a real opposition party, and so therefore we have to accept the reality of this duopolistic relationship between these two entities infects all of us. Whether you're going to ever vote for a Democrat or not, all of you within the sound of my voice are absolutely affected by what the Democratic Party has become because of whom the Republican Party is in response. The Republican Party is not Gandalf, you shall not pass, in response, all right, to the Balrog. They're not that. All right, they're not going over the cliff with the monster because the inertia of the force in which they were fighting it took them both overboard. No, they're going over the cliff with the monster because they want to. They just want to make sure it's a safe and productive trip, and we both land on our feet. We get there in manageable time. But if this was a party that was planting the staff and saying no, well then at that point, the crazier they got, the more resolve I would have to rout them in response. Is that the political party that thinks it represents us? No. And so if I can pretend otherwise, that won't be to my liking. It won't. Pretending the world is something it's not never works to your advantage. I don't care what ideology you are, what religion you are, it never works to your advantage. Right? To deny reality. So the reality is we don't have that. We have a symbiotic relationship between within this duopoly. And so therefore all of us are impacted, whether we've ever voted Democratic or not, by the crazy train they've become. And vis-a-vis, we'd all therefore be impacted, pulling them back from the brink at the exact same time.
Yeah, if we had a true opposition party, we would have had some of the serious debates.
Yes.
That you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we'll come back. Oh, that was quick. Sorry.
That's good. Got another half hour.
All right. Yeah, we do. So we'll get to as many of them as we possibly can. And then what remains, we will delve into in the overtime today for Blaze TV subscribers at blazetv.com/day. Stay tuned for all of that. Hour 2 coming your way next. All right, back with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio and podcast. Steve Deace here alongside Todd Erzen, Aaron McIntyre. All of you, let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Steve@stevedeace.com is how you can email us there. You can also like us and find us at Steve Deace on Facebook, Facebook, what is it, MeWe. I'm forgetting all of our sites. It's been a couple days.
Well, there's like 50 of them.
Yeah, Facebook, MeWe, Gab. Look for Steve Deace there. At Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. And then at Real Steve Deace on Truth Social is where you'll find us there. If you are a podcast listener, thank you so much. Please, if you have yet to do this, leave us a 5-star review. Hit subscribe or follow. And thank you to each and every one of you that have done those things for us already. This portion of the show brought to you by our friends over at Fast Growing Trees. Breathe some new life into your backyard this spring with fastgrowingtrees.com. From shade to fresh fruit to privacy, natural beauty, let Fast Growing Trees help you plant your dream garden with their expert advice, fast, reliable shipping. We're going to have Zoe's graduation party at our house later this spring. And figured since she wanted to have it at home, we better spruce up the yard a little bit. So we took advantage of Fast Growing Trees to help us do that. And it was so simple, even we could do it. All right. So if you want to join the Fast Growing Trees army from people that are tired of waiting in long lines, hauling heavy plants around, and then getting all that dirt and grime all over their vehicles when they do so, just avoid all that. FastGrowingTrees.com. Order online. Your plants arrive at your door in just a few days, and you'll be one of their over 1.5 million happy customers when you go to FastGrowingTrees.com/now. /Steve. FastGrowingTrees.com/Steve. For some reason, I thought my name was Now. It's not. FastGrowingTrees.com/Steve. Get 15% off your entire order. FastGrowingTrees.com/Steve for 15% off. Also, as a thank you, just got this note from our Nefarious film team. Oh, let me find this. Where is it here? I had it. Where'd it go? Dang it. I just had it, and then I lost it. Because this is something really cool we want to do for you guys. And now I need to know where it is. Oh, here it is. It's on my email. My bad. Okay. You guys are, I mean, straight up, the theaters have told us this. They've given us like 400 more theaters in the last 2 weeks because of what you guys have done. They'll just tell you we can't recall a grassroots movement calling in like, I want my MTV, and demanding I want this demon movie in my neighborhood right away. Okay, I think that you guys have made the theater chains believe my show's a lot bigger than it actually is. Right? Because this is the whole Samuel Adams, the tireless minority. You guys have been so persistent that they almost think that this is like a Beck, Limbaugh, Levin level of show. It's not. I mean, we're not a small show. We're just not at that level. But thank you. You guys have done so well with pre-sales for tickets. The theaters responded. That's why a lot of you are noticing right now, hey, there was no showings in my area a week ago. You were just telling me during the break, you got to know from somebody.
Yeah.
There was no showings at any theaters in Austin, Texas a week ago. Now there's 3, right? And this is why. It's a response to what you guys have done. Here's what we would like to do at Nefarious to thank all of you. All right? This is a special one-time offer for your group if you're going to see it in a theater. We will give you a special license and a digital copy of the film if you take 15 or more people to see it in the theater this weekend for opening weekend. All right, so we know you're going to love this movie, and we know you're going to want to share it with your church or group. All right, if you send us a photo of the 15 or more tickets from this weekend, because I've heard from tons of people, our whole group is going, our small group is going, our whole church is buying out showings. If that is you, then we want to give you, as a thank you, a free license to show the film at your church. All right. So if you are going with a group of 15 or more and you have that receipt and you're doing it this weekend for opening weekend, which is what the industry really pays attention to, we will give you a free church license to show it for a year at your church or group as a way of saying thank you. That's the least we could do for what all of you guys have done for us, okay? So send a photo of your receipt of the 15 or more tickets to groups@nefariousmovie.com. That's groups@nefariousmovie.com. And then you send us that receipt, we will send you the church license that you can show for up to a year to your church or group for free as our way of saying thank you for what you guys have done. The enemy did everything, dumped almost every movie they have not released yet on us in our release window over the last few weeks. And you guys came through big time. We almost recovered every last theater we lost. And we still ended up with 3.5 times the theaters we thought we were going to get when we decided to go theatrical last fall. I mean, what you guys did here was insane. This is the least we could do. So if you're part of a group that bought 15 or more tickets to Nefarious, email a photo of that receipt to groups@nefariousmovie.com. That's groups@nefariousmovie.com, and we'll give you a free church license to show it to your church or group for a year. So thank you. Back to Buy, Sell, or Hold.
That is awesome. And now for something completely different. D.S. Charlesworth says, considering their dynasty run went on for over 40 years from 1921 to 1964 with 20 wins and 9 losses in the World Series, the New York Yankees are the most successful franchise out of the 4 major professional team sports leagues.
Buy.
I could buy that. Now, yeah, would the Celtics do? Didn't they win didn't Red Auerbach win is it 10 in a row or 10 out of 12 years or something crazy? Okay. But when I think that would be the only franchise I would say that would challenge. Because you also, just like with the Yankees, you had great personalities with the Celtics too. But I'll buy this. Baseball is the more venerable sport. although the NBA is probably more popular now. But I'll buy it, sure.
I think context in terms of American prominence applies to this, but I was even going to say, like, you know better. I don't. Is there a hockey franchise historically? I mean, the Bruins. In
our country, no. The closest would be. You've had dynastic eras, but a lot of them were the Montreal Canadiens are kind of the Yankees of the NHL. In terms of history, the Red Wings were headed there. The late 90s, early 2000s Red Wings were headed there, and then they stopped letting the Red Wings be the New York Yankees with the new collective bargaining agreement when they lost their TV deal, because we could just buy players like Brendan Shanahan every offseason. We couldn't do that anymore, and so, our franchise, we're probably on that trajectory, didn't get there. You've had great eras like the New York Islanders in the early 80s, the Mike Bossy Islanders. They were replaced by the Edmonton Oilers of the Gretzky, Yari Curry era. Okay. Grant Fuhr, remember those great teams? Marc Messier. But no, I don't. I think you'd have to go to the Montreal Canadiens or old school original six to find anything in the NHL that approaches the Yankees.
Yeah, and that Celtics dynasty, I don't think we fully appreciate now because, again, it's well documented. The NBA that had, it was what was the other? The ABA, Dr. J. Magic, Bird, Jordan, that things changed. You go back to that Celtic dynasty with Bill Russell. We look back at it now as absolutely iconic, but I think you put that, even winning whatever many in a row, next to the New York Yankees. That the New York Yankees were culture. The Celtics at the time when they were doing that was not like dominating people's hearts, minds, and souls. Baseball was America back then. So I think ultimately the Yankees clearly get the nod.
Okay.
Next up, we go to James Paul, who says Hunter will be arrested before we see the Nashville Manifesto.
Sell. I'm not sure how high the odds for either are, but I definitely think the odds are higher that you will see the Nashville Manifesto.
Yeah.
Even if it's leaked by somebody, somewhere in the city who has some level of integrity, then you'll see Hunter Biden get arrested.
And if it's not, like Governor Lee there, right? Like, what's your point? Just please leave. Get out of our way.
Mm-hmm.
What's your point? Yeah.
Plus, you have 1 second. There are some very prominent media outlets that exist in Nashville, not the least of which is Daily Wire, who could be issuing FOIA requests and lawsuits to obtain that. Okay, you can't issue a FOIA request for where's Hunter Biden's arrest, right? Okay, so there's that angle too.
Paul Johnson says Lindsey Graham's Google search history consists entirely of how to become the next Dalai Lama.
Okay, now
did someone say tongue?
Oh, see, now I'm where Todd is at. Now you have made me extremely uncomfortable with that, like very, which is why I have to buy. But I'm very no right now. No.
Do you think even Lindsey Graham is like Jonah Hill gif with the Dalai Lama? Like,
oh man,
that's true. That kid was probably that male would be too young for Lindsey. He'd be looking more, man in a uniform variety.
Donald Trump's age.
Maybe more Aaron's age.
Now I'm uncomfortable.
Little May December action.
I'm uncomfortable now. Thank you. Logan Wade says RFK.
We had a dignified show yesterday, America.
I know. You had a class woman on here yesterday. I've just returned and just completely sullied the whole experience. Yes.
Logan Wade says RFK Jr. 24 will have a similar impact to the DNC that Trump 16 had to the GOP, assuming he survives the primary season. We kind of already talked about this.
We can only pray that this is the case. Yeah. Now, there's a mechanism within the Democratic Party that doesn't exist in the Republican Party called superdelegates. And that is what they did to Bernie Sanders, right? You go ahead, you can win all these primaries and everything else, but you can't win the superdelegates as kind of the last line of defense against you winning the nomination.
I always forget about the superdelegates.
But and I also, here's the other thing I don't know. I don't know. I always knew there were a lot of people in the Republican Party receptive to Trump's message. That's why when we were on the Cruz campaign, that we tried to have the same message. Okay, I don't know how many people are receptive to RFK Jr.'s message in the Democratic Party. I'm hoping it's a lot more than we think.
It isn't.
I am hoping there's a ton of people that that are just more into social programs than we are and are pro-choice, but aren't kill every baby and watch them be born alive. Okay, that have just gone along with this because they just think Republicans are for corporations and hate the little guy, and they had to tolerate, that because it was part of their political coalition. I'm hoping there's a lot of people like that. I am suspecting there isn't.
And I think RFK knows that.
But RFK Jr. is going to give us the answer to this. Yes. And I think that's a useful tool for us. One, I don't want to make it look like he's, has no dignity as a person. I'm just speaking as a political as a political brand. Let me make that clear. As a political brand, he has great value to us one way or the other. He is, in the perfect scenario, he drags that party back from the mouth of madness, okay, to at least 1998. All right, fair? At least does that. Yeah. Okay? Or B, the far more likely scenario.
Yes.
He shows us once and for all, abandon hope, all ye who enter. This is not just a rhetorical flourish. It's a demonic construct. And that party doesn't just need to be defeated, but exercised. Okay? That there is no Truman, there is no base of JFK Democrats that are just beyond disgusted with what's happened to their party. And they have been waiting for a sane figure to lead them out of the wilderness. Moses has arrived. They will not be receiving deliverance. They like it here. Okay? Either one of those answers is useful to us. One of them's a hell of a lot more fun than the other. Okay? If they're being honest about that too. But either way, we'll get some clarity. Either way.
Next, we go to Doug Ripley, who says Nefarious will be the #1 movie at the box office this weekend. Number of folks who either rallied around or reacted negatively towards Steve when his medical scare trended nationally on Twitter leads me to believe he's moving the meter in our culture right now.
I'm going to sell. Here's why I'm going to sell. Removing myself, just looking at numbers, okay? There's only so many seats in theaters, and we have around 1,000. And there's less seats in theaters than there used to be because a lot of them have gone to those recliners, which are nice, by the way. But it also means those seats are like 2.5 of the old seats, so there's fewer seats in theaters. So it's a simple numbers game, okay? I mean, what is considered if you average more than $5,000 a weekend per theater, that's considered, anything above $5,000 is considered elite. Like the Super Mario Brothers movie this weekend was at $10,000 a screen. That's crazy. Absolute nuts. And that's why it had a $200 million opening weekend. Okay. Even if we were to hit that 5,000 number, which would be nuts. And if we did that, by the way, like all of the Hollywood trades would write about that. They could not ignore a number like that. But do the math. Even if we hit the $5,000 per screen average, multiply that by 1,000 theaters, that's $5 million. Okay? That will not be enough to be the #1 movie in America. It won't. Super Mario Brothers is still going to make. It could lose 50% of its audience. That's still $100 million it would make this weekend. It could lose 70% of its audience. That's still $70 million it would make this weekend. 80% is still $50 million. We can't possibly do that. We don't have the capacity to do that. So what we're hoping for is the best per screen average we can get, because then that will help us to add more theaters moving forward.
Which will, to me, by definition, be #1. We're talking pound for pound. And also, I think the weather is getting nicer and nicer. And none of the other movies we're talking about have the buzz that this movie has. People are gonna default to do something other than go to the movies, other than a movie like this that people have been waiting for this long.
Follow up to that, Brian Ziegler says Nefarious will exceed $11.5 million opening weekend. Am I making you uncomfortable with these weekends?
No, I think would we do it for any other movie?
No.
That our audience cared about?
Oh, maybe.
Yes. Okay, so it's only fair to hold me to the same standard we would discuss with anybody else. If that happens, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I'm rolling in here, dude, like Bishop Don Magic friggin' Juan, if that happens. Okay. I mean, if we hit $4 or $5 million this weekend, again, on the number of screens we have, that would be absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. If we hit 11 million on the amount of screens we have, that's an act of God. We can't do that. Okay. We cannot do that on our own with our marketing budget and the amount of screens we are in. That would require an anointing to make that happen. So I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just telling you that that's the only way that it would. Okay.
Next up, we go to Maurice Simpson, who says Carolina Panthers won't go wrong drafting C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young at number 1.
I largely agree with this. I love Bryce Young. I do. I do have. I'm not concerned so much about the 5'10", 5'11". We are in a different era of the NFL now, more wide open. It's not Doug Flutie, behind an I formation, 2 tight end offense. Okay, from the 80s. You've seen Russell Wilson, other guys that are shorter in stature. It's more spread out in the NFL, more like a college offense. Even Kyler Murray, when he actually studies the playbook, has been pretty good. So for Bryce Young, it's not the 5'11". It's the $185. Okay, because you don't want to take the kid's mobility away from him, because that's his ability to create. I mean, he's an absolute Brett Favre-esque magician outside of the pocket. What that also means, though, is go take some hits. So Kyler Murray's not much taller than Bryce Young, but he's built a lot thicker. And he's had a problem staying healthy sometimes. I am concerned about that. I am. But in today's NFL, I would rather have Bryce Young's creativity. However, if CJ Stroud has done this very smartly. If you're an NFL team at all that has any concerns about that, CJ Stroud put a heroic performance on against Georgia in the playoff. Best receiver gets hurt. Best tailbacks, 2 top tailbacks are out. He carried that team. His willingness to run the ball and everything else. I mean, that was number 1 overall draft. And then Bryce Young didn't compete at the combine. CJ Stroud did and went out there and dominated. So if you're a team that has any concerns at all about Bryce Young's ability to stay healthy, Stroud performed so well on those 2 big stages that he gave you an excuse to choose him instead. I would still choose Bryce Young, but I'd have no problem drafting CJ Stroud number 1. And I think at the very least, I would rate Stroud better than any of the prospects that came out last year. And from 2 years ago, I'd probably rate Stroud just behind Trevor Lawrence and on par with Justin Fields, which means I'd probably rank Bryce Young a little ahead of that and just behind Trevor Lawrence. So I don't think you can go wrong either way. It really comes down to what kind of a gamble are you willing to take on Bryce Young's ability to stay healthy.
They're close enough to me. The thing I'd be looking at the most is which one is less likely to become a diva.
Bryce Young is the answer to that question. Yeah. Bryce Young is.
Next, Rooster with a violent past says, the delightful pancake topping formerly known as Aunt Jemima is pronounced syrup, not syrup.
I've heard it pronounced both ways. I guess I don't know the answer to this, but I love the fact that you refer to it as the delightful pancake topping formerly known as Aunt Jemima. I love that. So I will just buy on those grounds alone.
Sal, don't care.
Before we move on, a word about our friends at My Patriot Supply. It's hard to trust anything or anyone these days. Things seem a little bit more or a lot more uncertain than they ever have been before. That's why make sure you are prepared with a 3-month emergency food kit. That's over 2,000 calories a day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, even drinks and snacks. The full complement of nutrition you need every day. And the food stays good for up to 20 years with proper storage. And right now, you can save $200 on each kit, not your order. Each kit, even better. $200 on each kit that your family needs, plus free shipping right now at mypatriotsupply.com. Have the peace of mind to know that if Let's Go Brandon really starts brandoning, you are prepared. mypatriotsupply.com. Again, that's mypatriotsupply.com.
Next up, Billiam Buckberry says Steve Deace, I can't pronounce your name either. Steve Deace hopped up on hydrocodone with 1 hour of sleep, should have been given the microphone from his deathbed for Tuesday's overtime to spit freestyle about whatever he wanted to talk about.
We would have taken that call.
I am told I said in and out of consciousness, I said some very interesting things in the ER on Monday night is what Amy said. So, yeah.
Wow. I'm buying that.
You guys are buying that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, I'll buy it, sure.
Next, Dadmar1 says Gavin Newsom will enter the 2024 campaign with lots of fanfare, but will ultimately fizzle like Jeb, ! Because he is just, well, look at California.
Sell. If he enters, it's because they've already plotted to move along and move him. It's because he's been anointed to replace Biden. That's the only reason he would get in.
And the other reason, if he does fizzle, is not because of look at California. It's because, hey, look at this straight white male.
Yeah. If he gets in, it's because this is the superdelegate's choice. They have decided that that Joe cannot run again, and that even being a black woman, they just can't sell one of Montel Williams' hoes to the country.
I will sell because, listen, we remember what we on this very show used to say about Joe Biden, and here we are. It all depends on Gavin Newsom's willingness to go there. He's governor of California, but this is a whole nother level of selling out. What inanities are you willing to say, do, whatever, on behalf of, as Orrin McIntyre talks about, the total state? A lot of the, Steve, you and I, we're 50-year-old men. We've been around stupid liberalism, progressivism for a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. But like, again, we're talking about demonic. Is he willing to go all into the mouth of madness yet? Do you see Gavin Newsom? I see him. He's a stupid entitled lip. We don't know yet if he's willing to fully alter at the worship of Nefarious yet. That's the whole question.
I mean, are you saying you think pre-dementia, like 2012 Joe Biden, would not have been this nuts?
Joe Biden.
But at this stage of life, I just want the job, and I'm nuts anyway.
That's why
so
he
the
was
machine
picked.
can run the presidency.
He was necromanced because he would.
You don't think Gavin Newsom is that level of soulless?
I don't know. We're gonna find out. He has to be.
He's the governor of friggin' California. I think he is.
I don't know yet.
I think he is.
I don't know yet. I'm not making excuses.
And
and
here's the thing: if he's not yet, if you're governor of California, you're willing to be.
Okay.
I agree with your question. I just don't think it applies to him.
Are we at a state when we're going to find this? I mean, this is kind of the RFK Jr. conversation. We are going to essentially find out whether a job requirement prerequisite of being the Democrat nominee is that you are soulless. Yeah. Basically, we're going to find that out.
I mean, at the end of the day, he's the guy during California, like he at that rich restaurant. What's it called? The hypocrisy of going out.
Oh.
But they're all like that. They're all like that.
Point.
Yeah, they're all like that.
This is next level. That inner sanctum of getting in on that. Once Aaron and I were talking yesterday about how much that chick
in Nebraska.
How much she got paid to say. You know, she fainted. She took the first jab.
Oh, yeah, Tiffany Dover, the nurse, yeah.
That's a whole nother level. You know, she got paid a lot of money, I think, to make that lie. But how soulless are you willing to come? I don't know the man. He just looks like a typical liberal California punk to me. I don't know. Is he really to sit at the table of all the demons?
He's the governor of California. He already does.
Okay.
By the way, Steve, as a quick aside, did you see that video of Tiffany Dover? She's that nurse back in late 2020 who took the COVID jab in public and then collapsed, and then she fell off the face of the planet for 3 years. You remember?
I remember that case, but no. There's another video with her?
She's back. She did an interview with NBC where she called everybody who was asking questions about why she dropped off the face of the planet conspiracy theorists before saying to NBC that her hospital muzzled her.
Yeah.
Your reaction?
She flat out admitted the hospital would not let her talk.
How much money did she take?
That's what I said.
That's my reaction. Yeah.
See, That's another level.
Yeah, absolutely. How much money did you take? Yeah.
Next up, Screaming Plants the Musical says Steve would rather deal with his infection than watch more TikToks. Anna brings in Screaming Plants also says glad he's doing better. Yeah.
Bye.
It was bad yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, I would rather, because at least they'll carve the infection out of me. TikTok is putting it back into me. Bye. Yes.
Todd, unbeknownst to him, by the way, yesterday, conflated you with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Moving on. Uncommon Sense says everyone has had or will have mRNA vaccines through food.
At this rate, bye. There's a lot of that going around. Talking about some of those. Remember when we talked about the cattle just suddenly dying, but only in certain that may have very well been initial mRNA results, so to speak.
Okay. I'm willing to buy.
We have no, in all these areas, we just have no, there have not been consequences. There have not been sufficient pause buttons.
That's why.
There's racing to get back to normal. So you haven't really, of course, something like this is going to happen.
Yep.
You're too busy to make it otherwise.
That explains why I'm buying.
Rapid fire, 1 more minute. Thalai says, going to sell all guns except for 5 and take the $50,000 I made to buy physical gold. Good idea, buy, sell, or hold?
Sell.
I guess I'm leaning towards sell as well. Sorry.
Jerry Davis says by the end of April, both Colorado and Arizona will bolt from the Pac-12 for the Big 12. By June, Arizona State bolts for the Big 12, and San Diego State will then back out of going to the sinking ship, the Pac-12, and convince Oregon State and Washington State to join them in the Mountain West. Oregon and Washington will try to go independent until the Big 10 calls.
Bye. They're talking to the freaking CW, and it's almost May. Bye.
Because that's super stupid, I'm buying.
We do not have enough time for the final one. It is a top 10 80s hair ballads songs, and I simply cannot talk that fast. I'm sorry, Jay Ford. That was a
Save
good
it for
list.
next week.
Sure, there you go.
You wasted the chaos of realignment when we could have been talking hair ballads, Aaron.
And Todd is broken.
He's from cut him some slack. He's from a different generation.
It's true.
He doesn't know hair ballads. Okay, he doesn't know the power ballad from the hair metal band.
All due respect, you guys grew your hair out. We're cutting our nuts off, okay?
That's true. I think he needs a lot of slack, actually. Americans have had it. They want options. They don't want to have to keep supporting woke corporatists trying to destroy what's left of the country. Unfortunately, you don't have a huge amount of options when it comes to a parallel economy yet, but one of them, and one place you do have an option, and it's with an option all of us need nowadays, a mobile phone. You can go to our friends at Patriot Mobile, make the switch today to America's only American mobile phone company. They offer dependable nationwide coverage on all 3 of the major networks, and as a result, they can now offer you, if you make the switch, the best possible service in your area with their coverage guarantee. Switch to any of these networks at any time for free without changing carriers. And do so with the knowledge that you are directly now supporting a company that shares your values and is out to defend them at patriotmobile.com/Steve. When you go there to make the switch, you'll get a free activation at patriotmobile.com/Steve, or you can call them at 878-PATRIOT. That's 878-PATRIOT. Where's my weekly prophet of woe and lamentation?
I keep getting a message from him saying, it's a woman's voice actually saying, the recipient is not at the phone right now.
I wonder, is Daniel euthanizing us? Has he just decided, I think Steve Deace has had enough woe and lamentation for 1 week.
No way.
I've got to set this one out.
No.
Of course he's not. He is not. Daniel is not that kind of merciful. That's why we love him. He is more likely to pour it on and say, you know what, well, since you're suffering anyway, let's just go ahead and get on with it then.
Yes.
So something must be wrong. Hopefully he is okay. So I guess then we will continue on.
Hair ballads it is.
Hair bands.
With buy, sell, or hold.
Hair bands, here we go. Or hair ballads, yes. This is from Jay Ford. Top 80s hair ballads. I think this is a top 10 list. I didn't count. Don't Close Your Eyes by Kix.
No. Come on, man. We're starting with Kix. Wasn't even a good cereal. Your parents ever get you Kix, by the way?
Oh, I loved Kix.
No.
Back when I could eat it.
You're kidding me.
Oh, I loved Kix. It was the best.
Kix was so bad it would made you long for when your parents got the store brand variety, not generic. You don't want the generic black and white box. That was terrible at everything. But like the store brand, like growing up in Michigan, it was Spartan Foods, the local store brand. You know, what is Hy-Vee here? Top Choice, I think, isn't there, or just Hy-Vee, right? Kix was so bad that you preferred if your parents just got the store brand cereal. That was the knockoff because it was at least close enough to the real thing that it was better than Kix.
You did. This song sucked so bad you got Steve segueing into a cereal conversation.
I hated Kix cereal, man. When mom used to come home with Kix from the store, I had the same reaction that Anastasia had when Amy would tell her when she was little that she was making meatloaf for dinner. I mean, Anna would literally start crying. Like, just literally spontaneously tear up and start crying. She would ask her about that sometime. Is it true that when your mom told you when you were little she was making meatloaf that you would literally just begin to spontaneously cry? It's absolutely true.
Built character.
Yes.
High enough.
Puts hair on your chest.
Yeah,
Indeed, yes.
High Enough by Damned Yankees.
More likely, but it's a 90s song, actually. That song came out in 1990. Okay, but that is a great song. Remember Damn Yankees?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Which I think wasn't Motor City Madman was the guitarist,
yes,
right?
Yes, he was. Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent was the guitarist on that tune.
And the lead singer of Night Ranger.
Yes, yep. Because you had that era, the Traveling Wilburys and a few other projects where he took bands that kind of from different bands and acts and combined, and Damn Yankees was one of them. And High Enough, I think, was a #1 song. But I know it was in the 90s because I absolutely remember slow dancing to that. My senior year in high school. All right, it was a hot song for the formal dances. Okay, and so that would have been, I think, 1990 or 1991.
Love Song by Tesla.
It's okay.
Yeah,
but I mean, this is a target-rich environment, Erzen.
Yeah, so far
and so far
the
only one that I think definitely belongs on the list didn't come out in the 80s. Okay, so
and high enough. While a great song, you're pushing the fringes of power ballad with that song. I mean, that's got some tempo to it. You know, I mean, you're not. So I don't know what the heart of this. You better come strong here in the next.
I don't want to hear about it anymore. It's a shame I have to live without you anymore. There's a fire in my heart, a pounding in my brain, and it's driving me crazy. Is that how the song starts? There's a fire in my heart, a pounding in my brain, and it's driving me crazy. Is that how High Enough starts? Aren't those the opening lyrics?
50 years old. I don't know.
Straight up, man. I was talking to Amy yesterday. I got into the middle of a point.
When you were speaking in tongues and hallucinating?
No, I was supposedly sober. I got into a point and just stopped talking. And she's like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? You didn't finish your point. I'm like, I don't remember what I was trying to say.
You want me to quote the lyrics of High Enough?
And that was the first time it happened, and I'm totally blaming it, not on almost being 50. I'm totally blaming it on the hydrocodone.
I would.
Okay.
You thought your name was Now earlier, so there's that. When the Children Cry by White
That's
Lion.
more like it now.
Oh,
complete 80s schlock.
Oh, that's so terrible.
It is dreadful, terrible. Plenty of couple skates, though, to When the Children Cry by White Lion. That's what I'm talking about right there.
I'm starting to respect this list more now because I don't think it was serious all along because that song is awful.
It is awful, dude, but it absolutely belongs on the list. You bet. It does.
I haven't heard of any of these except for maybe two. Yeah, except for two bands. I mean, Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone.
That's a classic.
Yes.
Isn't this is where he's playing the piano on the beach, right? In the video.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
absolutely.
Is a must.
Don't know what you got. Yeah, absolutely. That's a classic from Cinderella. You bet.
I Remember You by Skid Row.
That is an incredible song. You ever heard this one, Aaron?
No.
This is an incredible song. Skid Row, a band that had like 2 great songs. This one and 18 in Life. Remember 18 in Life? Do you remember that song?
Of course.
Yeah.
And then Sebastian Coe overdosed and died eventually.
Sebastian Bach is still with us. He is still with us, yeah.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's still with us.
What am I thinking of?
Very underrated singer, had an incredible voice. I Remember You is a tremendous song. So, I mean, I would put that on the list of like most underrated pop songs ever. What's the Triumph song I'm thinking of? That it would be on that list. as well. But that I can't think of it now. That's a great song. I'm glad that made the list.
Next up, we have "Love Is on the Way" by Saigon Kick.
I don't even know what that is.
I don't either. I can't recall it.
I don't. That doesn't even sound familiar to me.
Did we just make this up? Saigon Kick.
I've
never heard of. Like I said, I've never heard of most of these.
Magic
bands.
Power is the Triumph song I was thinking of. That belongs like on the all-time underrated pop song
No
list.
one knows what that one is either. I don't know.
That's a great song. Yeah.
"Without You" by Motley Crue.
You went with "Without You" instead of "Home Sweet Home."
Yeah.
"Home Sweet Home" has to be on the list. You chose the wrong one. Okay?
Yeah.
"Home Sweet Home." It might be the best song Motley Crue ever did. Okay? Although I'm a huge Kickstart My Heart guy, but no. "Home Sweet Home" is the quintessential Motley Crue power ballad.
Yes.
This list, we might be bordering. Who presented this? What was the
Jay
gender?
Ford, Haitian, 1999.
Jay, if he's male, we might be bordering Todd here on a dude code violation by the time we get to the end of this.
We've got two more picks.
A conversation may need to be had here.
Two more picks
Okay,
to sell
all right.
us.
Fair enough.
"Heaven" by Warrant.
Oh, we're screwed.
It belongs on the list, but I hate the song. I hated the band. Okay. I never understood why John Elway left the Broncos to get involved in bad 80s hair metal. Okay.
What?
Look at the lead singer of Warrant and tell me that is not John Elway in a blonde-haired wig. It absolutely, that's John Elway's. I used to ask that question at parties in college. Do you guys, whenever someone would play a Warrant song, I'd turn around to somebody, why did John Elway leave the Broncos and get into hair metal? I thought it was a funny line.
You were a blast in college. I think that's why you didn't last. It's
I
not
thought,
the, it's not
I
the
thought
video
stuff
games,
like
it's
that was funny.
You told that joke one too many times, Dace.
This guy's got to go. All right? This is some form of harassment. It's too cringe. Get this kid off the campus. All right?
Finally.
Michigan jersey everywhere.
That's probably why they kicked me out, was for that, yes.
"Every Rose Has Its Thorn"
Yes.
by
Oh, that might be
Poison.
the best 80s power ballad.
Has to
You
be
made,
that.
all right. Certainly with this last one, you redeemed yourself. Okay.
It was kind of all over the place and drunken, but it had enough.
Yeah. I mean, that is, and that used to be, that's another reason why I might get kicked out of college. That was one of my karaoke go-tos back in the day, man, was "Every Rose Has Its Thorn." All right. So
You say things that, I mean,
I think I've established by now I have no dignity. I'm freaking doing this show with a hole in my chest.
Were you taking,
all right?
Were you taking hydrocodone in college too?
in the same just in this discussion, you were talking about dude code violations, and then seconds later, you were talking about your karaoke go-tos. That's the center will not hold, my friend.
"Every Rose Has Its Thorn" belongs on the list. Number one song, and it might be among the best, if not the best, of 80s hair metal power ballads of the era. I Remember You. That's a good poll. Okay. That's an often forgotten song, and it's freaking incredible. So that was good. A lot of the rest of the list, though, yikes.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, who are we? So we're obviously missing.
Oh, there's
just
a yeah.
ton.
I'll just type in 80s hair metal ballads.
I'm trying to.
I did love the "When the Children Cry" by White Lion, because I do hate that song, but it was a big hit. 80s hair metal ballads.
I mean, how is there's no Bon Jovi.
Love Bites by Def Leppard.
Oh, Def Leppard.
Here's the list that came up. Top 10 80s hair metal ballads of all time. All right. "Every Rose Has Its Thorn," which was on this list. "Heaven" by Warrant on this list. "Nobody's Fool" by they did Don't Know What You Got Until It's Gone instead of "Nobody's Fool." Okay. "Love Bites" by Def Leppard.
"Nobody's Fool" is a great song.
That's a great song too. I agree. Although I would put "Hysteria." I think "Hysteria" is better than "Love Bites." Don't you think "Hysteria" is a better hair metal love ballad? "Hysteria" is a better song.
Neither one are really ballads, but they're better songs than a lot of the ones on this list.
"Home Sweet Home" by Motley Crue. "I Remember You" by Skid Row. "When the Children Cry" by White Lion. They have Here I Go Again by Whitesnake. That is not a ballad.
No, it's not.
That's not a ballad. Carrie by Europe. I couldn't stand Europe. And I hated Final Countdown. I couldn't stand that song either. And The Price by Twisted Sister. I don't even know if I know that song. That was their list of the top 10.
Are we not calling Bon Jovi hair metal?
Because there you go. Because then you would get into I'll Be There For You, which is a great 80s hair metal ballad, right? I'll be there for you. These 5 words I swear to you. When you breathe, I want to be the air for you. I'll be there for you. I can't believe I still remembered that off the top of my head.
I can.
Yeah.
All right. You want to get into some more?
That's a lyric right there. When you breathe, I want to be the air for you.
It is.
That's a lyric right there for you.
Bonus, buy, sell, or hold here.
Okay.
This is from, we're going to go back to more conventional topics now. Josh Showers says the moon landing wasn't real. Buy, sell, or hold.
I don't want Buzz Aldrin to punch me in the face, so I'm going to buy.
Yeah, but I hate the fact that I now pause on like every possible offering along those
it
lines.
was real. It wasn't real? Was real. Buy.
The moon I'm sorry. It wasn't. My bad.
Then I'm selling because I don't want Buzz Aldrin to punch me in the face.
Sell.
Yeah.
Trying to maybe you guys can help me figure this one out. MK Caden says, I guess my future buy, sell, hold must be soft-headed sports or pop culture questions to get read on air. Replace 3 non-political questions with a sports segment. At least that way y'all can talk sports. Do you get what the proposition was in that one?
Yeah, what they're saying is if we had a dedicated sports segment every week, then they would know when not to listen.
It's not that there's...
Rather than interspersing it into this segment that they otherwise like, but then we subject them to our sports takes.
It's not that there's too many sports questions on these things. It's that whenever there is one, Steve will often go on those for a level of length that is not commensurate with the interest of our audience. I think that's true. But it's an opportunity to do what he did for so very long that he just doesn't... I mean, I know you still have the podcast, but it's just that's where you started.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Logan Wade says, take the over on the Trump being excluded from 2 state ballots for felony convictions. Buy, sell, or hold that.
I could buy that. I think we need to consider things that just have never been considered before. I could buy that. Yeah.
Agreed.
All right.
Go ahead.
Before we close things out, a reminder about our friends over at Better Spectacles. Who are they? Well, I'm wearing their glasses right now today. They're a conservative American company that offers Rodenstock eyewear, 144-year-old German-engineered glasses that are the gold standard in the industry, exclusively available for the first time for mass distribution here in the U.S. via our friends at Better Spectacles. All right. So if you want your glasses to work perfectly with your brain and the sharpest vision in all distances, including 40% better at near and intermediate distances, you want to talk to our friends over at Better Spectacles. BetterSpectacles.com/Steve. That's where I went to have my eyes checked out and to get these glasses. BetterSpectacles.com/Steve. Schedule a teleoptical appointment. Won't even have to leave your home. Don't settle with your eyesight. Go big with the best at BetterSpectacles.com/Steve. Ask about their introductory offer, 61% off. Plus free handcrafted Rodenstock frames, 61% off progressive eyewear. What's that? What I'm wearing? I'm a little far, I'm a little near. If that's you, 61% off and free handcrafted Rodenstock frames when you go to betterspectacles.com/Steve. That's betterspectacles.com/Steve.
Couple more. Sam Hillier says, by the end of the year, you will have at least one state openly defying or ignoring Supreme Court ruling.
I could see Florida getting there.
Yep.
For sure. I'll buy. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at what DeSantis is doing in this legislative session right now, it's just like they're doing like the Eagles' greatest hits, man, right now. And I bet you I could for sure see federal courts trying to say universal injunction, and I could for sure see DeSantis say, well, I've been wanting to do this, but since I'm going to run for president, now's a good time. Yeah. So here's the Peter Quill wind up middle finger, if you know what I'm saying. I could buy that too. Yeah.
Sure.
No More Bull Beep says Joe Biden won't finish out his term.
I have made this prediction numerous times. And
those necromancers are good, man.
They are, man. I mean, we are absolutely at prop me up beside the jukebox territory here. Okay. So I'm just going to buy, because sooner or later I have to be right about this. I mean, did you guys see there's another one today where he couldn't even read the teleprompter they gave him? You know, I mean, it's just...
See that clip about him? That was when Al Roker asked him to tell him if he was running for president again, and he went on about laying eggs or something like that.
Those are symptoms of dementia. That's what he has. But he's had it for a while. I mean, he had it as a candidate. It was pretty obvious. All right, we're going to stick around, do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers, some bonus buy, sell, or hold. For the rest of you, we will see you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern after Glenn Beck. Until then, John 3:17.